Fifth and final group, and that has got the current Euro RX1 leader in P1, and that of course is Anton Markland. Was very impressive. It'll be very interesting for me, Hal, to see Markland's tactic over this weekend, because you picked up on it earlier. Markland is playing a longer game here. Markland is looking for the European title. Does he mix it with the likes of Kristoffersson, or does he just focus on a good, solid, clean weekend of racing, knowing that they will not be in rounds 3, 4 and 5? Or does he go hell for leather and try and put that scalp on his car that says, I remember 2022, I beat Johan Kristoffersson in Höljes?
We could, I love this topic and we could spend a long time talking about this, but to try and briefly summarise it, you're 100% right. He doesn't need to take those guys on. He can afford to not get stuck into those battles, take it a bit easy, as long as he's not getting beaten by his championship rivals. But everybody scores points. So if Anton can win and have Johan Kristoffersson, Andreas Baccarat, Oliver Solberg, Sondre Evian behind him, and then Ida, Baumanis, Linnemann, Svardal, all the other regulars in EuroRX behind that group, it's only going to massively help his extension in his points lead. So you really just have to see how the weekend plays out. Do you go for damage limitation later on, or do you think we've got the pace? We know he's got the pace. He's one of the most underrated rallycross drivers in the world, in my opinion. He's got a great team and a great car around him, so there's no reason for me that he can't take on those guys and fight for a podium win this weekend. Absolutely no reason. He's one of 8 or 9 people who can win. But it's a real calculated situation, that, isn't it? Where JB Dubourg in a similar situation. You're a regular, but by beating some of the one-off drivers, you can actually gain quite a lot of points. So it's a real balance, and I think that's going to be fascinating. Right at this corner, where we ride on board with one of the new drivers, Gustav Bergstrom, now, was where Anton had a massive crash in the final qualifier of EuroRX last year. He still qualified top, didn't he, after the qualifying stages in that previous format we used. But because he had a car-ending roll in Heat 4, Q4 as it was then, that removed him from the event, and he's learned a lot from that. He went for a move that was 50-50, then realised he was going to hit Dubourg, so he backed out, because he's not the sort of person to get stuck into moves like that, so he backed out of it, got on the curb, the car rolled. However, he needed to commit or not commit, and I think that he's so experienced, started racing at the top level in EuroRX in 2013, but he's learned so much from that incident, and I think that'll be really critical this weekend, taking on some of the best rallycross drivers on the planet in Kristoffersson and Baccarat.
To substantiate what you've just been beautifully describing, Hal, Anton Markland has gone into 3rd position from a timing perspective, 49.910. He's ahead of Ida, Solberg. Dubourg is out there with a 50.570. It's good to see Mandy August, one of the most successful and active female racers in World Rallycross. Sætnan, another new youngster to watch out for, is also out there in car 30. But I have to say, it's all about the Anton Markland story, and he's 3rd quickest man out there. Here we are on board with the 31-year-old Swedish driver. 20 points already on the board, 1 victory so far this season. This weekend is round 2 of 6 on the Euro RX1 series.
And Anton again is pulling off early in the session. I think that's planned rather than having a problem. Maybe Baumanis was pulling off early as well. They're in a weird phase here where all you're going to do is use up allocation of wet tyres. I mean, you don't necessarily need to if it's not going to be wet. Maybe you're not learning so much. It'd be really interesting to know what setups each of these teams has gone out on. Do you go on a full wet setup when we expect it to be dry over the course of the weekend, or do you go on a dry setup knowing that it could rain when you're in pre-grid and it might rain and you're on the wrong setup? Or, there's a lot to learn in these laps, and it's how you approach it. There are so many different facets to it for the experienced teams. For guys like Gustav Bergstrom, who's in his 1st year of racing this Volkswagen Polo with KMS, it's just about lap time. You do whatever the team suggests setup-wise, and you just go in his situation, you go full wet setup. Make the car as easy to drive for him as possible to keep learning about the sport. Whereas his teammate, Johan Kristoffersson, may well go for a dry setup in the wet just to get a feel for what it would be like if it rains, when you're in pre-grid on a dry setup late in the weekend.
He's got himself in the perfect position, he hasn't he, Gustav Bergström, learning from the best, not just the best drivers, but one of the best teams of all time.
Just like Ida in World RX last year, exactly the same.
Yeah, Tommy Kristofferson runs an incredibly professional, effective and efficient team, giving all of the support, and for a 20-year-old driver like Bergström, what a way to start your career. You couldn't be in better hands.
Absolutely. There's a few big hitters in the Rallycross arena, and KMS are right up there.
And still right up there at the top of the table is Johan Kristofferson, here as part of his warm-up.